Good evening, everyone. I'm Craig Gerlach, Superintendent of Schools. I want to thank you for attending this evening. The first thing you'll note that is I'm taking off my face mask. The governor's order as it relates to mandatory face masks throughout Wisconsin includes an exemption for us as educators to remove our mask in the event that we are socially distancing, and you'll note that we are all well within the beyond the 6 foot parameter. As we begin here, let's start by brief introductions. We'll start with Brian in the corner.
Brian Casey, Director of Technology.
Sherry Stanchuk, Early Learning Principal.
Corey Hirschbrenner, Director of Elementary Education and Assistant Superintendent.
Molly Demrow, Principal at Jefferson Elementary.
Darla Panoski, Elementary Curriculum and Instruction Coordinator.
I'm going to just briefly make a few comments, and then I'm going to turn it over to the team here. Brian is monitoring the questions. This is not an interactive webinar. We have 400 people that have signed up to participate in this, so it's just not possible to do so. So we're asking that you write your comments in the chat. Brian will be monitoring those along with Sarah O'Donnell, who is online, and we're going to do the very best that we can to get through your questions. The Board of Education approved our plan back in June as it relates to reopening schools, and we have been putting a tremendous amount of time into moving forward in terms of what the plan is going to look like as it relates to each phase. A week or so ago, we did disclose our plan as it relates to kindergarten through or pre-K through 6, going to school 4 days a week with Wednesdays e-learning and teacher prep. At the secondary level, knowing that this is about elementary, but at the secondary level, they'll be in a blended learning model where they will have half the students going 7-12 will be going Monday, Tuesday, and the other half will be going Thursday, Friday, again with Wednesdays off for teacher preparation as well as deep cleaning in the buildings. The board also authorized me to make the decisions in terms of how we begin school, what phase we would be in, and how we move through or back as it relates to the status of COVID within our community and our schools. Please know that that is a responsibility that I take right to my heart, because I understand the ramifications of this. I'm making decisions based on a lot of support and feedback from a number of people, quite frankly, that will affect the most important people in your lives, your children. So please know that I am committed to doing the very best I can, knowing that this is also very new to me as well. As we moved through the planning process and as we continue to do, please know that we're receiving guidance from the Center of Disease Control, the CDC, the Department of Public Instruction, DPI, the WIA, which is the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association, as well as the Portage County Health Department. I am in daily contact with the Director of Human Services, Ray Shabelsky, as well as Portage County Health Officer Gary Garski. We have the support of our governor and in terms of local control to make these decisions individually as a community. There's pros and cons to that. I do know, and the governor will agree, that what's happening in Portage County and Stevens Point right now is very different than what's happening in Dane County and in inner city Milwaukee, and very different than maybe what's happening in Rusk County. So I understand that. However, a semblance of guidance in terms of central Wisconsin, I believe, is important. The vast majority of schools in central Wisconsin are doing something very similar to what we're doing. And in the event something changes, we will adjust. I will meet with again, we'll have daily meetings, but we will meet together as a team, the county, as well as we continue to review where we're at within the phases of this learning process and this plan for return to school. It is our goal, it is my goal, to get all children back in school safely. we will do that. It's going to take some time, and what's going to happen between now and then, of course, is nothing but clearly speculation. That said, I'm going to turn it over to the team for a presentation. It's going to probably be about 15 minutes. What's most important is that I shut up right now so we can get through the presentation and get to your questions. This is, I think, the fourth one. We've got one more tonight. And we're finding out that the questions that are coming forward are outstanding, and it really does help us as we continue to move forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Corey Hirschbrenner again, Assistant Superintendent and Director of Elementary Education. Darla Panaski and I are going to go through some of our responsible reopening information, and we'll try to go through this as quickly as possible and then open it up for questions that all of us will answer as we have the information available. So with our responsible reopening information, we were really committed to three core commitments through all of this work, and that was safety first, making sure that our staff and our students' safety was at the forefront of every decision that we made from March up to this point, and will continue to be at the forefront in the coming months ahead. We also knew that being flexible was really, really important, because at any point in time, we may need to adjust and adapt into a different phase of our plan throughout this next school year. We also know that families want flexibility. They want choice. They want to be able to do what is in the best interest of their student based on their family needs. And then instruction, of course, is always at the forefront for us, and offering many educational opportunities that fit families' needs and fit students' needs is important. So what can you expect coming back to this school year? Well, what you can expect is that elementary students will be in our buildings in a traditional classroom environment for 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Wednesdays will be an e-learning day. We also know that some families may not be comfortable with that option. They may not be comfortable with that option for the entire year, or they may not be comfortable with that option for maybe the first quarter or maybe the third quarter when, flu season hits again. So we are going to offer families the opportunity to opt into e-learning for the entire year, or opt into e-learning based on each quarter. So if you're not comfortable sending your child back to school right at the start of the year, you can opt into e-learning for the first quarter and then make a decision each quarter from there on out for the remainder of the year. We also have decided to start with a gradual start to the year. The reason we're doing that is so that we can slowly bring children back into our buildings. We know we're not going to be able to do open houses, back to school nights. We were not able to do kindergarten visitation days. So we're offering the opportunity for students that may not have been in a particular building yet to be the only students in that building for the beginning days. So what that will look like is on September 8th, we are only going to have 4K and kindergarten students in our buildings. Then on September 9th, there's no in-person school. Actually, there's no school for any elementary students because e-learning will not be able to happen that Wednesday because not all of our Chromebooks will be deployed yet. Then on Thursday, September 10th, we will have 4K, K, first grade and second grade. And then the 11th, we'll have all of our elementary students in our buildings. And then on September 14th, we'll start our first full week of Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and that Wednesday will be the first e-learning day for elementary students. The other reason why we did the gradual start was because we really need more time with our staff at the beginning of September and the end of August so that we can help them learn all of the new safety protocols. They can help us determine what pieces of furniture might need to be taken out of classrooms so that we can appropriately distance students. And we need to really have some time collaborating and preparing activities so that we are ready to roll with e-learning and traditional learning on September 8th. Another thing that you can expect if your students are in the traditional environment is that we're going to maintain separation and distance between desks within the classrooms. So in the past, you might have walked into an elementary room and seen some really cool desk arrangements. We're not going to be able to do that. We're going to have desks that are distanced apart, and there might not be as much storage and furniture and cabinets in those classrooms as there once were. All of our staff, all of our students are going to be wearing face masks, and elementary students will spend the majority of their day in their homeroom with their homeroom teacher. We will still continue with Maples. We will have art and music teachers go into the classrooms. Phy-Ed teachers will still continue to use the gym or are encouraged to use outdoor spaces as much as possible. We are also encouraging our classroom teachers, our homeroom teachers, to utilize outdoor classroom space as well. We will have lots of plexiglass. We'll have barriers between students where we're not able to put that distance between desks and between students. Classrooms may be utilizing spaces within the building that we've never utilized before. So if we've got a classroom that might have 24 students, we might have to split that room and utilize maybe a reading room, utilize an art room, utilize the library for classroom spaces. There'll be lots of sanitation stations, additional wipes, additional hand sanitizers, cleaning supplies that our staff will be using, and you will not see field trips right now. We've got a moratorium on field trips except for the Boston School Forest. So we are allowing our elementary students to go to the Boston School Forest. Again, lots of enhanced safety protocols. We've got in hallways, we've got dots that are stuck on the floor that are 6 feet apart. We've got outdoor spaces that have spray painted circles so that we can help students with that 6 feet of separation. How we utilize our locker and storage spaces and our backpacks are going to look different. Not a lot of visitors. In fact, we're limiting visitors to our buildings. So volunteers, foster grandparents, those individuals will not be allowed to come into our buildings. And we're going to continue to monitor that on a quarterly basis. We are looking for ways to utilize volunteers, foster grandparents in other ways, but remotely. Drinking fountains will only be used for water bottle filling. We've got additional ventilation going through our buildings and circulation. And Wednesdays are being used as a deep clean day, and we've got enhanced cleaning protocols happening at nights and on the weekends. Meals and snacks, we are asking that there not be birthday treats brought in that are edible. Grab and go meals are going to continue through August 20th. You'll see some of our students are going to be eating lunch in the cafeteria. Others will be eating lunch in the classroom. So a lot of those logistics are really dependent on the building, what their cafeteria spaces look like, how many kids they have in their building. So those details will be coming from your school within the coming weeks. Meal pickup. on e-learning days. So Wednesdays, we don't have school happening or students in our buildings physically, but we are working on ways to find an opportunity for families to take advantage of our breakfast and meal programs on Wednesdays. So again, more information will be coming in that regard. A lot of families have asked about, what if I have a student that has a 504 plan, or what do I do if my child has an IEP? Don't hesitate. You will be getting contacted by your child's case manager in the coming weeks. If you're getting nervous and concerned about it and you know who that case manager is, feel free to contact the school and they'll get you in touch with that individual, or contact the Student Services Department. But if your child has a 504 plan or an IEP, that IEP team will determine how this e-learning or how the new environment in a traditional classroom will meet the needs of your child. So we will make sure that those IEP teams are addressing these new protocols, the new environment based on your child's needs. And parents obviously are part of that team and will have input into that decision-making process. We will have some traveling teachers, but we are going to limit that. It will not look like it did prior to COVID. And we know that there's a lot of staff. We know that there's a lot of kids and a lot of families that are really anxious right now. They're nervous, they're concerned, they have tons of questions. We are going to focus on social and emotional learning in the first few weeks of school, because it's been a really long time since our staff has been in the buildings, and it's been a really long time since our students have been in the buildings. So it's important for us to rebuild those relationships, to address those questions, those concerns that kids have. We know we're going to have to do a lot of teaching and reteaching. So know that we're here to help, we're here to support, and we know that we're going to have to be watching for students that may be struggling right now during this new normal. Darla, I'm going to turn it over to you about what does it look like getting to school.
Getting to school. All right, so for busing, all adults and students will need to wear face masks, and there will be extras provided in case your child gets on the bus and oops, they forgot it. We are limiting buses to 24 students or less per bus, and that by doing that enables us to safely spread those students apart. They're going to be sitting at the window to provide that extra distance. There'll be one student per bus per seat, unless you have students from the same household, then they are allowed to sit together. We do have high profile seat backs on our buses, which provide a barrier between students. The buses will be disinfected following each route with special attention to those high touch areas. If you know you're not going to need transportation, we're asking you to please opt out by utilizing the URL that's listed in our presentation that will help with planning those routes. Drop off and pickup zones. The bus and parent drop-off pickup zones will probably need to be modified to accommodate an increase in self-transported students. More information will be coming from your schools, and in the next couple of weeks. We're asking that you do not park, stop, exit your vehicle, or congregate at those drop-off and pickup sites. Staying healthy. We're really focusing and asking for your help in this area, and asking that students stay home when they're sick. And we're asking you to not send your student to school who have exhibited any of those symptoms that are on the right in the pink. Those are the symptoms of COVID-19 within the last 24 hours. By sending a sick student to school, it not only puts students at risk, and staff at risk, and it also increases that possibility of classrooms needing to close temporarily. or putting us into an e-learning environment. So we're asking for your help if your child within the last 24 hours have exhibited any of those symptoms to please keep them home. Face masks are required. We're asking you, students and staff are required to wear face masks before entering school buildings or buses, so have them on already. Those with a medical exemption will need to provide documentation from a physician. And we're really encouraging you to practice now with your child so they get used to wearing that mask. Be prepared for e-learning. We will be keeping the Skyward Family Access updated, and we're asking you to also keep your emergency contact information updated on Skyward as well, and think about that backup childcare for those that will not be able to stay at home with their child if we end up in an e-learning environment.
So a common question we're continuing to get is, what happens if there's a positive case within my building? How will I know? Portage County Public Health will be immediately notified if there is a positive case, and then contact tracing begins immediately. So you will receive notification from either Portage County Health or the district or both. And if there is a positive case within one of our elementary buildings, or any building for that matter, families of that building will be notified that there's a positive case, but you will not receive any additional information unless your child has been identified as a close contact. And of course, the reason why we can't provide any additional information is because of privacy rights, and it's our obligation to make sure that those are protected. Will my student's classroom have to isolate? So situations are different there. It really depends on what that contact tracing looks like. So classrooms may have to isolate. Schools may have to isolate, or several classrooms may have to isolate. So flexibility is the key word here, and just be prepared and know that it is likely that it may happen at some point during the year. We're hoping it doesn't. We don't want anyone to become ill, but there is a chance that it could, and we just need to be prepared to jump right into e-learning if that's the case. With that, I think there's a lot of people online. It makes probably best sense just to start opening it up for questions now. So we're going to have Brian go through the questions as they were presented, and we'll answer them the best that we can.
Okay, we received a number of questions. We have over 300 people attending this webinar. I'm going to address the questions that are being submitted on the live Q&A. We did get questions that were pre-submitted. If we have time, we'll get back to those. The fact being, I don't know if those people that pre-submitted are actually online or not. So we're going to do the best to answer the questions. We will not be able to respond individually to these questions. So if you would like answers and we did not provide one, please contact the building administration. We saw a list of email addresses up there. I'd also ask panelists to try and be as brief as possible so that we can get to all the questions. Our first question is, how does the district intend to successfully practice the CDC's social distancing recommendation of 6 feet in elementary classrooms with 25 or more students?
I can talk to that. So I mentioned we're taking furniture out of the rooms. We've got desks distanced apart. So we're going to continue to make sure that when they're in the classrooms, they're 6 feet apart. On the playground is where we're finding it the most difficult to keep kids away, distance. So what we've done is we implemented during summer school a little game called Scarecrow. So as kids were playing on the playground, the teacher or the supervisor would blow the whistle and yell Scarecrow, and all the students would stand with their arms apart, which would be a reminder to check, are you 6 feet away from each other? So there's going to be a lot of teaching and a lot of reteaching throughout the day.
The next question regards the learning model at the elementary school. Why did the district not implement the blended learning model for students in grades K-6?
Sure, I can speak to that. One reason was because we firmly believe that elementary students, most elementary students learn best in a traditional environment. It is really, really, really difficult to teach students how to read. Students at the elementary level are not as independent as older students. So therefore, we believe that it's best for students to learn in that traditional environment. We also know that in the community, employers are slowly starting to call their employees back to work. And we knew that if students were not in school, families would also have childcare issues. While that was not the only impetus behind making this decision, it was really solely on, we believe elementary students learn best when they have a teacher in front of them in a traditional environment.
The childcare issue, however, is for real. We'll be dealing with that on Wednesdays because we have a number of families that have contacted us indicating that childcare within their home is not an option, and access to childcare right now for many families is not an option. So we're looking at teaming up with the Boys and Girls Club as well as the YMCA to see what type of programming we could offer for those families that truly have challenges regarding childcare. And of course, as Corey said, if we were going to do the blended model, it would be even that much more complicated.
I have a question here about a specific grade at a specific elementary. Again, I would remind attendees, we have a panel here. If you have a very specific question about your particular school, I would reach out to the principal at that school. Related to that, in this same question, though, there was a question about temperature checks. Maybe Craig, you want to address that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Some schools are doing temperature checks. Some schools aren't. First and foremost, you got the CDC does have a temperature recommendation. That said, we know that every one of our bodies operate or function at a different temperature. For example, my body naturally runs at a higher temperature. If I do a temperature check and I go home, my temperature is not going to change. What does that really tell us? The other is it's really we take temperature of children all the time. They come into the office and they might be ill or not feeling well. We take through our nursing office. We take temperatures and call mom or dad or someone to pick them up. That creates a problem, however, when we do that on a regular basis, as that is really considered a medical procedure. And we don't have enough nursing staff in our school district that truly are authorized to perform that medical procedure. And that is a recommendation from our legal counsel. And we're, quite frankly, we're concerned about legal litigation as it could relate to being responsible for the data of temperatures and who's going to get that information and the confidentiality thereof. But first and foremost, it's not a true indicator of whether or not a child or an adult actually has COVID.
I have a question here related to internet access. I guess I feel I'd be best to answer that. I'll try to knock that one off quick. We realized doing e-learning that access to the internet is crucial. It was a struggle during the Safer at Home order. What we're trying to do now is ask every single parent to complete this form on Skyward, which tells us about their internet access. And through that, we'll know who they are and where they live. And we have many more possibilities than we had in the past. We're very confident we can get almost every kid online. And for those that can't, we're going to find a solution. So I would say do the form on Skyward and just know that we will know who you are and we'll be reaching out and trying to find a solution prior to school starting. Can we talk about ventilation systems? A parent wants to know if we've done anything in that area to improve ventilation in schools.
We have improved ventilation systems in many of our buildings right now as a result of the referendum work over the past couple of years. That said, we still are in the process of finishing up some of our schools. We have the ability, however, with all of our schools to increase ventilation. All of our HVAC systems are computerized. They're very high tech, and we can monitor those from outside of the building, actually, or remotely. So we will continue to look at increasing airflow throughout each building. We will also be encouraging doors to be open. And the issue yesterday of fans came up with our meeting with, the school hosts a meeting with various leaders throughout the community, including Portage County. And that question came up, and it is supported from the CDC as well as Portage County, that we can use floor fan, the box fans that sit closer to the to the floor. That's appropriate with CDC guidelines. The larger, taller pedestal for the obvious reasons are not allowed.
Question regarding class sizes. How are we achieving social distancing and the desired class sizes at the elementary level?
Yep. So what we're doing right now is we're monitoring the numbers. We asked parents that are interested in opting into e-learning to let us know by the 17th, which is Monday. So once we get those final numbers in, we are taking those e-learning students out of our classes and then balancing the classes within each building accordingly. So we are confident that, our numbers will be lower than what they normally would have been. And, like I said, there are some families who have opted into e-learning for the entire year. So they will be taken out for the entire year, and others may be coming back at another time. So we are able to distance those kids because our numbers are lower. We've removed furniture from the classrooms and we've spaced those desks apart. We need to be honest. I mean, are kids going to be 6 feet away from each other every single second of every single day? No, we cannot guarantee that. We are going to do our best, but remember that the guidelines state you should be distance, or if you can't be that 6 feet apart, you shouldn't be near someone for more than 15 minutes of time. So we are doing our very best to appropriately distance students within our school buildings and while they're outside.
We also had that discussion with Portage County as well. They understand that and they support that. And in return, their statement will come right back to wearing masks is the best thing that we can do throughout the course of the day.
And if students, or we don't feel comfortable that they're not, 6 feet, we've purchased a multitude of barriers to put in between desks or put in between students. And we've even got teachers getting very, very creative with clear shower curtains that are hanging as a barrier between students. So teachers are getting really creative, and we're doing the very best we can to make sure that we're providing as many barriers between individuals as we can.
We have a couple questions from parents about parents entering the schools, especially on the first day. Traditionally, a lot of parents would come in with their children and bring in supplies. How's that first day going to look differently now with students arriving their first day with their school supplies?
Molly, you want to answer that one?
Sure thing. So we are working together as elementary principals and our staff to come up with ways to make that work. Right now, we don't want a lot of people coming into the buildings. And so your students will be greeted on our playgrounds and by our staff. So they won't be trying to figure out where to go. We'll be sure that there are plenty of staff available. We're working through ideas on how to get all the school supplies in a safe and organized way, because we know that there are a lot of things to bring in. Principals and staff will be in touch with families to give kind of those guidelines as we develop them.
We had a parent asking if there was any opportunities for parents to actually inspect the protocols that we've established in schools to be able to physically see what we're doing and what classes look like.
I can speak to that. We have a video that we did for summer school. So I would encourage families to take a look at that video that was created for summer school, because the protocols that we put in place there are going to be emulated in all of our buildings for the start of the year. I know that building principals are also working on creating videos, welcome back videos that will show some of those things. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to get those out soon so that families even have an opportunity to talk to their children about it, watch the video together, help explain why when they return to our buildings, things look different. All of the teaching and reteaching that we can do in the coming weeks in preparation for that first day is really going to help.
A question from a parent about learning outcomes or curriculum, wanting to know if that was available to parents so that if they feel that there are gaps that are occurring, that they can possibly assist their child. Do we have information about the curriculum that parents could find?
I'll speak to that one, Darla, then I'm going to let you jump in. What we are planning to do, and the principals and I, as well as Darla, met this morning for 4 hours to continue to work on some of this information. And we are going to create power standards at the elementary level by quarter. And then teachers will work to create lessons that address those power standards. And our current report card that we have, at some point, not right away, maybe not even until the end of the year, will be changed to address what those power standards are at the elementary level. So if you have a specific question about learning gaps and what the curriculum looks like and how you can help at home, which we highly encourage, your best bet is to really be in touch with the classroom teacher or the principal, because they're going to be the closest contact with your child to be able to tell you exactly how they're doing. Are they engaging? Where might they need additional support, or where might we be able to provide some extension activities?
And today we also talked a lot about Wednesday e-learning, because all students will be in that e-learning model. And we're really going to stress that that day be a reteaching day, a practice day for content and concepts and skills that they learned either the week before or that Monday and Tuesday. So there wouldn't be any new content or new skills that teachers would be expecting students to learn on that e-learning day. It'll be enrichment, some STEM activities, virtual field trips, things like that.
Question about live streaming instruction to students, and this parent is wondering why that's not being offered. If you could address that.
So we are, our lessons may include some synchronous activities where there might be a guided math group taking place. So students that are in the traditional classroom would be receiving that guided math lesson, and there may be students at home in an e-learning environment that would be able to take part in that remotely. Our lessons may also include some asynchronous sessions, which mean there might be some pre-recorded lessons by the teacher that families can access at whatever time is convenient for them. And then we also learned last year during e-learning that families at the elementary level were really, really interested in having more hands-on, more paper pencil workbook kind of activities. So we are going to do our due diligence to make sure that there are those resources available for families as well. And we're talking about how can we make sure that we've got a place where we can get those in families' hands on an ongoing basis.
Will parents be allowed to drop their children off early before the first bell?
So I think the question is asking, previously students could be dropped off as early as 8:25, in some buildings a little earlier for breakfast. So one of the things that's important to note is breakfast will take place in the classroom. So breakfast won't be happening before the bell rings. As far as coming onto the playground, we're creating plans for students to still be able to do that, depending on the space within the building or within the school. As far as the playground space, those procedures may look different, but we are making plans that students could return or start coming to the buildings at the 8:25 time.
some questions regarding our masking policy. If students arrive at school without a mask, will we provide a mask? And what happens to children that refuse to wear a mask?
So we will have masks available. The state actually sent masks to the district. So each staff member received a mask, and we have 2 masks available for students within every school within the building. We are also, of course, encouraging families, if they can, to supply masks for their children. If they can't, we've had a multitude of community organizations that have offered to make masks and donate those to the school. So if a student loses one or just doesn't have one or misplaces one, we will make sure that they have them. If students refuse to wear them, we're going to politely ask that they do wear one. We also need to know that some students may be scared. When I walked into summer school, there were students that were scared. They looked at me and said, "I don't know what you look like or who you are, and can you show me your face?" And so we need to keep that in mind and help students to understand why we have to do this. And it's to keep people safe. It's to keep them safe. It's to keep us safe. And then we're going to encourage them to put it on, tell them it's a rule and rules are made to be followed. And it's what we have to do. And some of us may not be happy with it or feel comfortable with it, but we're asking that you do it. We know that we've got students that for maybe a medical reason or as indicated in their IEP or 504 plan cannot wear a mask. If a student cannot wear a mask, we're asking that you provide a doctor's documentation indicating that they can't. And then we will just keep that on file and know that your child cannot wear a mask. Some people are asking, can we wear a shield rather than a mask? Unfortunately, the order from the state indicates that shields are not accepted. So we are requiring that all staff and all students wear the mask. We have some staff that have positions and even classroom teachers where they feel like if their mouth was visible, it would be better for students. So we've recently just purchased some masks that have a clear front so that children can see their teacher. I also know that many of our elementary buildings are purchasing button makers so that if staff have masks on, we're going to make buttons so it has a picture of their face on it so children know exactly what their teacher actually looks like without a mask on.
We could use your help as it relates to students, children, kids not wearing masks. Yes, they can be uncomfortable with it. They might be afraid of it. That's where you as parents can start having your children wear masks right now. And of course, the other issue, I likely probably will deal with this more on the secondary level than the elementary. We have parents, we have community members. It's a very controversial issue when it comes to masks. And some people flat out, they don't agree with it. Please don't send your children to school with that frame of mind, because if we can't keep masks on kids, we'll end up shutting our schools down. So please talk to your kids in terms of the importance, whether you agree with it or not. It's the one single issue that we've been dealing with since March that is extremely controversial, and of course, it continues to be so.
I have a question regarding before and after school programming in our elementary schools. For example, YMCA daycare or Boys and Girls Club, would those programs continue and how would those look?
The Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA before and after school care are going to continue. We've been in collaboration with both of those organizations. They are also working on a program on Wednesdays that may include childcare as well as support with e-learning. So there should be information coming out within the coming next couple of weeks regarding Wednesdays. But if your child did partake in the before or after school, we will be able to continue that.
a very good question regarding e-learning at the kindergarten level. What would an e-learning day look like, or an e-learning program look like for those very young students, especially kindergarten? And we're lucky to have a whole panel of very experienced kindergarten level educators in the room.
So, our classroom teachers are really, they've learned a lot since the spring when we went to e-learning. And it's definitely a balance of online activities and activities that students can do within their home. Because we know that it is best for kids to not be on a device all day. So our teachers are fantastic. They're going to create lessons that are engaging for students, and also creating opportunities or activities that can be done within the home as well. I guess if Sherry, do you have anything that you would add to that?
That was a nice description on kindergarten. I think 4K is a similar but different because our 4Ks for the most part are housed in community child care centers who are governed by the Department of Children and Families, and have, again, some similar but a little bit different expectations. And so our e-learning plan has significantly less screen time or access to screen time. But what we have decided to do in 4K is come up with common standards that are carried over into the classroom and then shared at home for embedded learning opportunities at home. And then on Wednesday, for our students that are in the flexible model, there will be opportunities for one-on-one contact with teachers or small group flexible learning meetings for the children enrolled in the program.
Okay. Sorry, I lost my question. I'm scrolling through. A lot of questions about what happens if there's a positive case. So those are coming in still, so maybe we can revisit that again briefly. What happens if someone is identified positive in a classroom?
If we have a positive case within a classroom, we will work with the Portage County Health Department in terms of contact tracing, and anyone that has close contact, which is defined by Portage County. There's 4 or 5 indicators. If someone is determined to be in close contact, all of them would be required to self-quarantine for 14 days, whether it be a student or a staff member. And of course, that will be determined through the contact tracing. In the event of that particular group of students, let's say it is a class, one of our cohorts, a second grade classroom, and if it would be all of the students that would be considered close contact, that particular group of students and teacher at a given time, regardless of the building, would then go to the e-learning model for the 14-day quarantine.
Question regarding transportation. If parents choose to opt out of transportation and want to self-transport their child, can they get back into the transportation system if conditions change later?
Yes, we have a transportation policy. We will continue to follow our policy. We have received information from a number of, this was earlier in the summer, a survey that indicated parents that would be willing to, even though they fall within the transportation policy, are interested and would be willing to transport their children because they have the means to do so. We also have responses from our seniors, and I believe our seniors will not be riding the bus. Typically, they most don't. And so we are adjusting our schedules, or we're creating our bus routes on that premise that fewer kids are simply going to be taking the bus. So we encourage you, if you have the ability, if you have the resources to transport your children to school, that would be greatly appreciated. That said, if you choose to do that, but then for whatever reason choose to go back or need public or school transportation, yes, we per state law and policy need to provide that.
A question again about the e-learning days on Wednesday, if that would include just classroom instruction and lessons, or if that would include Maples instruction as well.
So Wednesdays will not be as structured as the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We're going to use Wednesdays for practice of skills and standards that have already been taught. or for extension or enrichment activities. Our Maples teachers will be providing e-learning lessons, so we'll have some of those available for families to access on Wednesdays as well. We'll also have teachers probably contacting families on Wednesdays and families having the ability to contact teachers. But also know that that day is designated for teachers to collaborate and figure out basically the next week's lessons and activities for e-learning and students that are in that traditional model. So at the elementary level, we're basically starting to digitize our entire curriculum for the entire year.
We had a question. What if I believe my child has been in contact with someone that is being tested for COVID? Do I keep my child home in an abundance of caution, or do I send my child? How do parents determine whether their child should go or not in those circumstances where there may be contact tracing or they suspect a contact?
If you are considered a close contact, of course you would not send your child to school. If you know someone or you were around, but you've not been considered a close contact, if there aren't any symptoms, they can come to school. But if they are symptomatic, do not send them to school, and make sure that they are symptom-free for 24 hours before sending them to school. But you would know if you were in close contact with someone that tested positive. The Portage County Health Department would let you know. But again, if you are questioning it, the safest bet is to not send them. And make sure that they're not they don't have any symptoms for a period of time.
I have a question about the school library program. Are children going to be allowed to check out books?
Sure. So I know Corey talked a little bit about our Maples. So that's music, art, PE, and our library media sciences. So the students will see their library media teacher on that same rotation that we've been utilizing. And we will be working out a way for students to check out books. We're looking at different ways for students to browse that have a lot less touching of all the books. But we do want that. That's a very important piece for students. So we definitely are working on that.
We have a question regarding the grading system. What grading system will elementary schools use for the upcoming school year?
We're going to go back to our traditional grading. So that's the 1, 2, 3, 4 that we were using in the past. It will not be the pass that we did last spring. It's going to be the 1, 2, 3, 4.
A question from a couple parents about transitioning between the models. If they start face-to-face and they don't feel comfortable with the situation in our community or that particular classroom, can they switch their child to e-learning? Perhaps vice versa, if they feel it's safe enough and they do want to send their child back, what does that look like?
Absolutely. You will have the option to opt in or out of e-learning and jump into that flexible e-learning at any point in the year, but we're asking that students transition at quarter time. So if you make a decision, we're asking that you make that decision for each quarter.
Okay, we have almost 5 minutes left. Time for a few more questions. I think I got through a lot of the questions that people submitted live. Sarah O'Donnell is also trying to respond to those that she can, that she has information at her fingertips. I'm going to try and get to a few of the questions that were pre-submitted that we haven't covered, and then we'll save a few minutes to kind of wrap things up, but we do want to stick to our time frame of 6 o'clock. Parents are wondering about getting lists for school supplies.
So right now, all of our elementary school supply lists are on our school website. So I just went on and checked before this started. If you go to the district website and then at the top, there's a drop down, select your child's school. And then on that main homepage, just scroll down to the very bottom and there's a link that just says school supply lists and all the grade levels are there.
Schools are not holding back to school night. So if this parent wonders how they may possibly meet their child's teacher.
Sure, we had a great discussion today, and in talking with teachers and just staff alike, we want to make sure to be able to build that connection right away. We know that everyone will feel more comfortable when they can see, students can see their teacher's face. So we're looking at ways that we can make that virtual, and more will come out, but that is really the goal, is we want to be able to share those things with you prior to the first day of school.
And how do parents find out who their child's teacher is?
So, and I don't know that it would really change, but that has always been in Skyward on a certain date. And I don't know what the certain date will be, but your child's teacher will be assigned there. And so I think, do you know what date we would have it in?
We haven't decided a date yet. We're really waiting to get the confirmation on the families that are choosing e-learning, so then we can balance those class lists. But within the next week or so, those lists will be determined. We'll get them in Skyward, and then we will let you know when you can log on to Skyward and check out your child's teacher. And if you don't have a Skyward login, we will also provide that information for you. And of course, if you have trouble doing getting logged on, we've got people here at Bliss that can help you with that. So within the next couple of weeks, you should be finding that information out.
That's a really good thing to do now, I think, for families, just to make sure that you can log in, get your information updated. There are forms in Skyward that need to be completed. Just getting all of those things done now will make it easier when the time comes when you want to log in and find out who your teacher is.
So as I said, we received a number of questions. I feel we did a really good job of addressing those virtually through text, through our panel. If we didn't get to all the questions, our apologies. There'll be more information coming from the district. We have a few minutes to wrap up. Would you guys like to conclude with any remarks or any things that touched off through our discussion?
I guess a couple things that I would like to say is if you could start just talking to your students about some of the changes that they may see within our buildings, wearing masks, start setting those routines, those bedtimes, making time in the day for, school talk, get organized, all of those normal things that you would do in preparation for the coming year. Another thing I think that's really important is just to keep our lines of communication open between school and home. We need you. We're in this together. And if you're struggling with something, if you need help with something, if you feel that we could do a better job at something, let us know. And please be patient. We don't have all the answers, but we promise we'll get those answers to you. And be flexible, because we have no idea what the coming weeks, what the coming year is going to bring. And please know that our teachers are working very, very, very hard in the best interest of your students, and they want what's best for those students, and they're committed, and they're going to continue to be committed. And we've got a tough year ahead, but we're confident we've got the right people in place to do the best job that they can.
Corey, I just wanted to add one thing. A lot of these questions were very specific to K-6. Please know that if you have any questions for K or early childhood special ed, that we'll be working on some separate communication for you. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime, and know that we're working in collaboration with our community partners, because we're in this together with them. So a lot of the communication will be delivered jointly.
Great.
I just want to say how I know that it's really important for all families and students to know how excited we are just to be either back in the building or online with our students. And so setting that tone and letting them know that, I think, will help us all have a great start to the year.
This is, I believe, year 35 for me in public education, year 22 as a superintendent. And I always get excited for the beginning of the new year. And I am this year as well. However, this year we're climbing a mountain, and there are many, many challenges. And as we climb this mountain, we're likely going to fall once or twice, and we're gonna get back up. And I'm asking that you be patient as we continue to navigate through this, and give us an opportunity to earn your trust. Thank you.